Hi, everybody, and welcome to the latest of our seminars from Nexus and the American Center on entrepreneurship during these COVID times. My name is Eric Agelay, and I'm the Executive Director of Nexus. Nexus is a startup incubation hub and innovation center that is powered by the American Center in New Delhi and ACIR. We run a business incubation for Indian startups, and we also run a series of seminars, conferences, and workshops, especially during these COVID times, to help the entrepreneurial community about adjusting, growing, and scaling up their enterprises. We're very excited in the latest of our series of online seminars. This latest one is go-to-market strategies during COVID times, which apparently is very relevant nowadays as we all try to struggle with the lockdown and the different circumstances that COVID has brought upon us. So we're very excited to welcome Ruchika Malhotra, and she's going to be explaining about different strategies that startups can use and how to expand your business and how to go to market during these times. If you're interested in these seminars, we will be having these about once every month. And we also have the Business Incubator, Startup Incubator by Nexus. If you're a startup and interested in some of the world's best incubation practices in the United States and from India, I encourage you to look at our webpage at www.startupnexus.in to learn about oncoming events and our next cohort, which will be starting at the end of June. But now let me introduce Ruchika Malhotra, who's going to be running this latest seminar for us about the go-to-market strategies. Ruchika is the founder and CEO of repliCMO. repliCMO is a management consulting firm that specializes in marketing IP creation for technology and emerging technologies. Ruchika is a seasoned B2B marketing professional with over 17 years of experience in technology in the consulting sector. She has held marketing leadership positions at brands like Concentrix, which is IBM GPS, Cushman & Wakefield, the Economist Intelligence Unit, and Nucleus Software. She was recognized by World Marketing Congress as the most influential marketing technology leader in 2015 for her notable contributions in marketing in the tech industry. She has consulted leading brands on their go-to-market and digital strategies, lead generation and customer acquisition through inbound marketing, digital orchestration, strategic planning, and brand advocacy are some of her strengths. So we can think of no one better to lead this kind of online seminar about go-to-market strategies during COVID than Ruchika Malhotra. We are very pleased to have her. And without further ado, I'll hand it over to her. Ruchika, please.
Thank you, Eric. Thanks so much for that illustrious introduction, and great. So here we go. Without much of ado, I will switch on to what we have today for us. And I'm just sharing my slides right now so that all of you can see on the screens. Okay. So Eric, can you view my screen?
I can. It looks like you're good to go, Ruchika.
Okay, great. Thanks. Okay. So go-to-market in COVID times and dissolving dilemmas and creating opportunities. So a topic that is basically haunting a lot of, and I get a lot of inquiries and consistent in terms of, the world is like that, how do we go to market and what should be our strategies and all. So I just put up a small presentation, sharing my views. And these are culmination of thoughts that we have gathered over a period of these 4-5 months, been talking to a lot of corporates, a lot of startups, a lot of SMEs who are in the same boat, and all of us. So we have a new timeline, and everybody knows about it, that what's happening right now has actually changed the way we will be looking things for a long while, right? The corona, before corona and after corona. So the times will definitely be changing. And that's why it is a very significant event that is happening in our timeline. So maybe we are fortunate or unfortunate, that doesn't mean, but that's something that's actually disrupting a lot of things that we are doing. And with this timeline comes a new world order. The world as we see it has actually changed. I mean, in the last 4 to 5 months, what we have seen is, the world getting into a closed door. Everyone's after a lot of things, and people are just getting indoors, and the whole pandemic has created a lot of ruckus across the globe, and all of us are into it together. Remote is the new default, and with for months we have been having unprecedented and newer ways, innovating newer ways to go to market, to just be inside and working remotely from our home. So today was the first time that after 2.5 months that I stepped out and getting into my office, and I was sharing with Eric that how pleasing it was. But anyways, we are having this virtual seminar, and all of us are logging it remote. So that's the new default, by the way. Now this slide is about a very significant one, and I actually loved the way a lot of memes are coming up these days on social medias. What is the new normal? So I just particularly picked up this slide that actually talks about how the world and the continents are behaving right now. So these, of course, you understand this Olympic ring, and we are there united and we are there distanced. So united in our fight, and united and distanced by the way we are. The new world order has also given rise to the new economic order as we see it. Just sharing a lot of the IMF, the economist, and the world is actually looking at a new world with 90% of the economy going down. So we have, a lot of layoffs happening, the unemployment, and every day and every fourth we're listening on to this news. That's pretty grim also in some places that, the declaring, we have been declared getting into a recessionary mode. The whole demand and supply dynamics across the globe has been disrupted. And that's the new economic order. And what actually it's happening is there are a couple of takeaways that are imminent in this new economic order. So what is first imminent is we are anxious. Everyone is anxious, and this anxiety is actually not only limited to one class or one set. This anxiety is actually omnipresent. We are anxious. The school going kid is anxious. My housemate is anxious. As a business person, I am anxious, So this anxiety is actually overpowering a lot of businesses also. And the personas, the personas, two types of personas are actually emerging. It's the cautious mindset that is saying, maintain the status quo, just curb expenses wherever you can, freeze cost, embrace for negative growth, reduce the manpower. So, there is a set of persona. Everyone is actually dealing with it. We have a cautious mindset that is coming. And on the other hand, there is a challenger mindset also. You see a lot of people. So, there are two thought processes that are coming in. Someone is saying that, okay, let's be a little cautious. Let's be where we are. Let's see how the world is looking. Let's see, if we have to cut the cost, if we have to freeze the cost, let's tide this with us. And on contrary, there is a challenger mindset that is opening up, that I think this is the time to take the risks, reinvent the business models. This COVID-19 or whatever you say, this era has actually thrown a lot of new opportunities for us. So there's this one challenger mindset also coming in. We need to optimally utilize the resources. We have seen a lot of organizations actually coming up and saying that, hey, we are not cutting costs, or we are not laying off people. We are taking this to actually pump up the economy. And, there are certain economic boosters that are coming from the government and everywhere. So, there's optimum utilization of resources. Some people are saying, well, I need to invest in creating the IP that will leapfrog in future. People are innovating. And I will come on to these, and I will explain later in my presentation in terms of what does it actually mean. Targeting new vulnerable opportunities is also one of the new normal that is coming up from this challenger mindset, and the people who are seeking that, okay, let's take the risk at this point in time. Reskilling manpower and rejigging priorities. A lot of us are, looking at reskilling ourselves, whether it's through our own individual endeavors, or basically it is the organizations are investing that, they have a set of manpower. So let's reskill them for this new normal, and, they just rejig opportunities. So clearly the paradigm is actually shifting in between the cautious mindset and the risk-taking mindset. And of course, there are certain sermons that are actually popping up in our head every day. You switch on the news and you see, a lot of debates or a lot of discussions happening. And I think these are a couple of things that I quite liked. And, though they are kind of an oxymoron to each other, but yes, this too shall pass. It's not the end of humanity. I mean, we have seen epidemics, pandemics, or maybe such situations in past as well. Not maybe as grave as it is, but it's not the end of humanity. This is a change that is happening, and that will pass. Dynamics will change, and change is the only constant. Nothing remains status quo. So, I mean, we are constantly changing the ways, we are constantly, each day it is a new change. Humans are still social beings, and they won't evolve that soon, right? I mean, we have to be socially distanced. Everyone is talking about that, but still the innate nature of, being social. So things will get to normal in a way. Nothing stays status quo. The new normal will also keep evolving. The markets will shrink, but they won't diminish. So these are the sermons that are also, coming in, and a lot of people are talking every day and every bar. But then everyone says, just wait a minute, this is all great and understood. But how do I navigate my businesses? I mean, there is so much of information overload these days, across social media, across digital channels, across everywhere. We are just living in an information overload, and there's so much of information coming in from across. So how does one make sense of where do I navigate my own business? Where do I navigate my own systems? And, what to make of all these things? There are extreme experts who are talking about, the world is actually going to end, there is catastrophic that has begun. And then there are a set of optimists who are saying that, okay, no, I mean, just go with the wave, just go with the tide, take it slowly. So, so actually this way of how do I navigate my business is one question that is there in everyone's mind. And especially we're talking about the startup ecosystem. We're talking about the MSME or the SMEs who are actually picking up, or who are taking up the businesses before this new normal hit. And now suddenly we are into summer. So now the further presentation, or the few next slides that I'm going to share with you, is basically our view of how do you actually plan your business? How do you want to stay sane? And we are not a sectoral expert maybe onto each one of your businesses, but there are certain cues that you can take from this and move on. Also, there are, when we speak to a lot of our colleagues and our contacts and our networks across, there is a lot of dilemmas, that one is actually dealing with. Being a business, being in a business, you want to have your revenue maximization, or you're looking at a cost reduction. So that's the first dilemma that everyone's is actually facing. And then people think that, okay, I mean, revenue maximization is not happening. There is a cut all across. My business is impacted. So let me reduce the cost. But it's a vicious circle that then goes on. Secondly, expanding the customer base versus churning existing customer. So demands are getting generated. There are a couple of demands, and there are a couple of people who are actually looking at this as a sense of understanding. But there is a possibility that whatever client base, the existing client base that you already have, that needs to be changed to get more opportunities. Acceleration versus status quo. I mean, do you accelerate all your business development efforts, or you just stay? So these are the dilemmas that I'm just talking about and feeding into you. And this is actually, we are we are actually getting to know every day. You know, everyone is talking to us about these things. Demand generation versus supply chain strengthening, innovation versus renovation, insourcing versus outsourcing, caution versus risk. Well, what we say is, you know your business very well, and you know the impact on that business as well. So depending upon the impact that your business has taken as of now, you need to understand that whether it's in the high category, it's in the medium category, or it's in the low impact category. And depending upon what's the impact that your business has had so far, I think you need to move on and start navigating your business. We have a fitting oxymoron, and I particularly love this picture. So this has been taken from Tim Mitchell's, the Center of the Baltic Art. So they actually have the glow light signs, and often such wonderful one-liners are put in there. And so look at this. I mean, it talks about go with the flow, swim against the tide. Now it's kind of a very fitting oxymoron right now. So because when you say you're going with the flow, it doesn't mean you go with the flow and don't fret upon things, but it also says swim against the tide. Now, when you're swimming against the tide, you are looking at opportunities that are not there, and you want to get onto the other shore by swimming against the tide, and maybe you were the winner. So today is an opportunity to get better, and we better not waste it. So that is something that we need to keep on remembering, and we keep on telling to each us that today we got a great opportunity on board, and this is the time to utilize it and to make the most of the use. Here we bring you an opportunity matrix, and this matrix, actually we have come up with this matrix with a lot of thought process behind the whole. We studied a lot of businesses across, whether there are different sectors, and what is the impact that this pandemic has had on these sectors, and how people are actually grappling, and how businesses are grappling, and especially when you're talking about the SMEs, the startup ecosystem, and there are all the sectors that are in. So what we had actually brought about is, this is a matrix that we have put together on the degree of the impact versus the efforts that you need to take on 3 pillars. That's the innovation, demand generation, and communication. When we talk about innovation, demand generation, and communication, now we're talking about these 3 streams, and we have picked up these 3 parameters very importantly and very cautiously, because these are the 3 wheels that could gear you and that could roll you up into the future. So whether your business has been impacted highly, negatively, or positively, or whether your business has been impacted mediumly, negatively or positively, or low and medium. So how, with the degree of the impact that you have had on your business, how your efforts on innovation, demand generation, and communication, what kind of efforts do you do, will actually chart out how you will navigate this crisis in the future. And we will keep on this slide for a little while, because I think this is the crux. And there is where a lot of people are actually getting dismayed upon. So let's go one by one. So I go to the second slide, and I talk about it. Now, the maximum degree of impact. The maximum degree of impact could be negative as well as could be positive on your business, okay? So when you say that, let's take some examples. Sectors like travel and tourism, hospitality, transportation, retail, luxury. Now, these are the sectors that we have been seen that are badly hit. By the nature of this pandemic, these are the sectors that, were into the soup. And, for the first 2 or 3 months, I mean, everything went under lockdown. We were not traveling. There was absolutely ban on the tourism. And, there are people are scared to So it's kind of, so these are very, very badly hit, and they need, and somewhere else, if we see an absolute paradigm shift to the positive side, there were a couple of sectors like cybersecurity, when you talk about edtech, when you talk about online retail, when you talk, sorry, my mistake, online entertainment, when you talk about retail, when you talk about telecom. So these are the sectors that have been very positively impacted. Now, when I talk about innovation, demand generation, and communication, this is where you need to think, you need to put on the thinking hat and see. So somebody would say, okay, why do I need to innovate when I'm so badly hit? But you need to innovate in order to survive. If you have been maximum, it will been badly hit, and the negative impact on your business has been. So you need to innovate to survive. You need to innovate, and innovation can happen anywhere and anytime, and in any form. The best innovations, I mean, you can say that, okay, you can go into a product innovation. You can go into a services innovation. You can go into an innovation for your delivery model, for your standard operating procedures. You can actually innovate in a way how you do your business. So, I mean, somebody would say that, okay, I mean, I am already hit. There is so much of bloodbaths taking place in my sector. So what is the need for innovation? The need for innovation definitely arises because if you won't innovate, you won't survive. And the innovation that you will do right now, depending upon that, will create a demand for you in the future. The demand generation will get into the future. Again, the efforts towards creating the demand and generation needs to be all-time high. So it's not that if you're badly impacted, you stop any sort of demand generation. You need to think, you need to innovate, you put on the thinking hats and see that if I innovate my business process, and if I am able to put that innovation high onto the agenda, that how do I move out of this zone? Whenever the business will start rolling as normal, will I be ready? If you do not innovate, you won't be ready. So the maximum, so I go back to the last slide, wherein if it's a high impact, you need to have the innovation quotient or the effort on innovation very high for you. The demand generation effort also has to be extremely high. And the communication, I will come on to that model later on. And the communication needs to be extremely high even. Then we see a different scenario for sectors who have had a great positive impact. The sectors who actually had a windfall. I mean, the digital transformation that we were talking about, and some of the sectors were just waiting because people were knowing that this will come. But this crisis has actually accentuated and accelerated the rate at which that transformation happened for these sectors. It's amazing. I mean, look at EdTech, you look at the online entertainment, look at the cybersecurity, or maybe look at IT services. Everybody is now remotely working. So now these sectors need to innovate in order to capture the windfall. If they don't innovate, if they sit on the status quo, okay, fine, great, I'm getting a lot of business right now, things are moving in, why do I need to innovate? No, they too need to innovate. They need to innovate, and they need to strengthen their supply chain. They need to strengthen their digital transformation, and they need to strengthen their delivery. So the innovation will be happening in these areas for people or for sectors who have been highly positively impacted by this crisis. And so, and again, the degree of demand generation that is there will definitely, because the demand is definitely there. But should they rest and say, okay, the demand is definitely there. Why do I need to put in a lot of effort right now and increase the demand? Yes, you absolutely need to do that, because if you get those efforts right now, the efforts of multiplying it and the effort to augment it, you can actually broaden your horizon and you can just sail through for the next 3, 4, 5 years. But if you just are happy, satisfied that, okay, the demand is automatically generated, how do I, why do I need to? I will just go with the wind and I will just go with the flow and just, No, your degree of innovation also needs to be high on that front. So, it's kind of an oxymoron right now, but yes, that's fitting. The horizon for the degree of demand generation is absolutely immediate. So people who have, and there will be things, or there will be some parameters when I say horizon is immediate. So your communication processes, your marketing processes, your supply chain delivery processes, the kind of innovation that has to happen now. Otherwise, you will miss the bus. Similarly, if in the negative impact, in the high negative impact, the innovation that will happen or the demand generation that will happen, it might not be effective right now. But if you don't do it right now, you will miss the bus 3 months or 4 months or 5 months later. So the horizons will be different. I mean, for a positive impact maker, the degree of innovation has to, or the demand generation has to be effective right now. But for the high impact, which has been negatively impacted, the efforts toward demand generation and the demand timeline will happen right now, but the impact will be seen a little later. But the action has to be right now. Now we move on to the medium degree of impact, and I go back slides back. When I see organizations who have, or sectors which have been impactedly medium, the positive and the negative. So when I say those who have had medium impact, I mean, these sectors were not greatly impacted, but they were not negatively impacted either. Their business flows were at an average normal. In that perspective, the innovation, the demand generation, and the communication, these are the parameters that you need to look at. The innovation has to be still high. The demand generation quotient has to be at the medium level, and the communication has to be high. Now I go back and I explain to you. Now, why do people who have a medium degree of impact need, and a negative degree, why do they need to innovate? They need to innovate in order to ride the businesses. Now, when I say they need to innovate to ride the businesses, because their business has been very mediumly affected. The products, services, delivery models, standard operating procedures, and the digital transformation that is happening will be medium. So they need to innovate now. On a positive side, if they have been impacted on the positive side, they need to innovate to scale. Because this whole opportunity that has been created. So you see a timeline and you say that, hey, right now I'm mediumly impacted, but I could have been in the high impact category as well. So if I need to generate my demand, if I do something, and if I do some innovation and digital transformation, I can definitely catapult there. So the innovation is happening over there as well. So, I mean, it's a very, very interesting sentiment that we see across, and the more that we dwell upon it, I think it always gravitates towards that there's an opportunity in every nook and corner. Okay, now the degree of demand generation that these organizations or these sectors will need to put in, or the effort of demand generation that need to put in, would has to be by combating the dip in the demand, need to be all-time high. Now you don't want that your demand is mediumly hit, so you don't want that it needs to dip to the lower side, and that is why you need to keep up that demand generation efforts in order to keep it at bay, in order for it to sail and to be in the median or maybe catapult towards the high thing. And again, the demand generation timeline may vary. I mean, whatever efforts that you're putting, whatever innovation that you're doing right now might help you to be here, to be in the medium category, or just avoid to get into the low bucket, but on the higher impact bucket. Similarly, on the positive side, if you have been mediumly impacted on the positive side, the degree of demand generation that you need to put in is two efforts. I mean, the efforts to multiply and augment needs to be very high. So again, you need to put in a lot of effort in innovation and to create that demand. because that demand generation can happen from, you can catapult in from a medium to a high thing. So, so if you see the variance, I mean, that's quite an interesting, quite an interesting sentiment that we're riding over here. So for a medium person, for a medium sector or medium impact sector, you definitely want to go on the positive high, but not on the negative low, right? So your innovation and the degree of efforts have to be on the higher side, both in terms of innovation, in terms of demand generation, and in terms of communication of the demand generation. And then we come on to the sectors which have been very lowly impacted. I mean, they have not been impacted either negatively nor positively. So, I mean, their business was as usual. I mean, has been very, very low impact. For them, also very interestingly, they need to innovate to prepare and to catapult. Now, for sectors which have had very low impact, they have nothing to lose actually. Okay, but they need to introspect internally and see that this is the time wherein I could prepare and I could catapult to the next stage. What all things, because you're seeing the world, you are seeing that, okay, this has happened to me, this has happened to other sectors right now, it can happen to me as well. If it has happened, so, that sense of, it's actually shaken all of our business basics in terms of that there is so much of uncertainty. Right now, I might be in a cushy position. I might not get affected, but it's not that. I mean, it might change. And I might be into a category wherein my business gets mediumly affected or negatively affected or high interaction. So I need to also be prepared for that. I need to also innovate and catapult and prepare myself to leapfrog. Times can change anytime. So you need to look inside and learn from the world right now. And that's where, the whole thought process of innovation, the degree of innovation for you also has to be high. I mean, you need to be medium, but yes, they also have to be high. Then if there are sectors who have had positive impact, but a low positive impact, they have seen a little bit of an increment into their revenues, or maybe, now suddenly you see the opportunity, you see that you need to introspect and you need to ride the change, supply change, delivery, digital transformation. Or these are the three parameters on which you need to ride your change. So again, so if I go back to 3 slides and I see and I show you the way, So if you see, if you have been lowly impacted, your sectors have been lowly impacted, your degree of innovation on the efforts have to be medium. If your demand generation effort has to be still high, and your communication effort has to be medium. I'll come on to the communication bit because that we will be covering more from a marketing sense. But I think this opportunity matrix give you a sense to, if you have to navigate your business, bucket your business in this matrix and see what is that you want to do. And this is maybe, everyone sees it from a different angle, but we have made it quite simple. And we said that, okay, let's make it quite commonsensical and let's make it quite simple for people or for businesses to adopt. So here you can take this and juxtapose onto your business model and see the degree of innovation, demand generation, and communication efforts that you need to put in at this point in time to navigate your businesses. Okay, yeah. Okay, and then when I say, okay, once I have bucketed my business plan, or once I've bucketed my business and I understand that this is the innovation, because you guys know your business is best, I think a very, it's good or it's prudent to have a realistic go-to-market plan. Now, when I say a realistic go-to-market plan, break down your deliverables, break down your plan, or break down your actionables into 3 buckets again: surgical, tactical, and strategic. Now, the surgical bit, it's what you're going to do 3 to 6 months of time right now. Tactical would be a plan for 6 to 12 months, and strategic would be more from a long-term horizon in terms of where do you see your business from 12 to 24 months. horizon. So when you say a surgical approach towards your businesses, when you say a 3 to 6 months kind of an horizon, this is something that you need to immediately put into action. Okay, and that might be, looking back, prospecting, innovating, if you have to set things in order right now. Tactical would be more so from a 6 to 12 months perspective, that you communicate. What do you communicate? So, and then the strategic, where do you want to see your businesses? Because things will get back to a little bit of a normal, year or so. But till then, have a very clear-cut plan. And that's absolutely, absolutely imperative right now. Because without a plan and without that approach, you won't be able to head anywhere. You need to have that clarity in your mind. And of course, whatever you were doing, whatever innovation you're doing, whether product, whether digital transformation or any sort of demand generation activities that you're planning, communicate. You have to communicate with your consumers. You have to communicate to the world so that the people understand. And what to communicate? Communicate about the pain point. Communicate about what are the pain points that your consumer is facing right now. Communicate about the evolution that any product life cycle, that any consumer life cycle is having right now with respect to your own businesses. I mean, you're the best judge. Communicate about possible solutions that you can offer. And then communicate about your innovations. What have you thought about? What is that innovation that will ease the pain point or put that evolution matrix juxtaposed onto your innovation matrix? And of course, communicate about your evolution as well. So there are a couple of key takeaways that personally, I feel that from a marketing perspective, or from okay, how do you put it? From a marketing perspective or from consumer insights perspective, I have taken, there are many things that you can assimilate from there, but there are a couple of key takeaways that I have taken from the news order, and these are below. Contactless is preferred. We will be living in this era for a while. Okay, people will be hesitant to be in touch, be socially there. So contactless is definitely preferred. Consumers across are open to ideas. There was a time then innovation was just a part of, I would say, people were just sailing on a status quo model for a long time. There were a couple of organizations who were doing innovation. Startup community, there was a lot of innovation that were happening. But before that startup mode happened, people were in that status quo model that, okay, things are happening at their own pace, let them be. But now, what is happening right now is consumers are definitely open. Consumers are definitely open, okay? And the consumers are definitely looking to experiment. They're ready to experiment. Gig economy is your biggest pool. That's the pool that you need to get. Innovations are fueling growth and they're welcome. More time is spent on digital media. Horizons have expanded from rural to global. So these are the key takeaways that I have, and personally, I think from a consumer insight perspective, a lot of it can be taken from the slide. And I will dwell upon it a little more in detail when we go, into the next few slides and all. But just assimilate this, and think through what we're talking about again. Okay, so the reason why we are here in terms of the best practices from a GTM perspective, look, any marketing solution or any go-to-market strategy is very unique for any brand, any sector, or any organization. You cannot paint a common brush across all, but yes, there are a couple of things that we all need to take in mind and we all need to keep in mind in order to think and say that what are the best practices that all of us can emulate from each other. And these are a collection of maybe our research that has been taken place for 3-4 months, 5 months, in terms of how things have actually gravitated towards the new normal. So here you go. I have broken down these best practices into 3 different categories. One definitely is self-reflection. The other one would be coming on to the consumer insights. And the third one, marketing at last. So from a self-reflection perspective, I think we need to be mindful and we need to be humane. This time will pass. But what this new normal has given us is a window of self-reflection, and a self-reflection on everything that we do as a person, as a business, as a community, maybe in wherever you are, whatever work that you're doing in a startup community or as an SME, you need to be mindful and you need to be humane. Status quo won't help. This is the time to create opportunities. And I actually am a very, very strong advocate about this. You know, if you are just being there and not doing anything, just lying there and say that, okay, I'm fine, this will pass and I will go with the flow, trust me, that's going to happen. You're going to miss the bus. So this is the time to create opportunities. And I will tell you why. If you can't solve a real problem, don't procrastinate. You will lose the advantage. So I know we work with a lot of startups. There are a lot of people that come in and talk to us about their innovations, and they say that, okay, so this new normal has actually given us, and I go back to the last slide when I talk about consumers are ready to experiment right now. So that iota of doubt that the people had, okay, we will not be looking at an experimentation, I think this is too far-fetched and all, things have changed. People are looking, the consumer are looking, they're willing to experiment, they're willing to accept, because everyone is seeing the change that is happening right now. So if you can solve a real problem, don't procrastinate. You will lose your competitive advantage. If you have a fitting idea, and I'm talking specifically from a startup community perspective, if you have a very fitting idea, but you don't have resources to put it together, borrow, seek investments. And you would be really, really surprised. I mean, we have seen a lot of investments coming in. Of course, the government has also pulled up, and there are a couple of loans that are available for MSME sectors of the startups and stuff. But even the investment or the investor community is looking at investing right now. Just that you have to go out and look at those opportunities where you can see that you can make a change, and trust me, you will get those investments. Keep your assets besides you. Now, it's a very interesting thing that I'm going to talk about right now here. Now, your assets, there are a lot of layoffs happening. People are letting go of the people, and in everywhere you can see sad stories about people being fired. But I personally feel, people or your assets who can actually build your organization from the scratch, keep them with you. It's a tough time. It's tough time for everyone. But those people who have invested their heart and soul into your businesses, who understand your businesses, who can actually leapfrog, if you keep them with you, you will be in a better position, because this time shall pass, but you won't be able to get your key assets back to you. Okay, again, insource only your core. Rest, outsource, and build winning alliances. Now, cost cutting, austerity measures, everything is okay. People will cut costs. People would look at squeezing their profit margins, because that's the world. So how can you be competitive still? You know your core very well, your business core. So think about, if you can keep your core in-house, what you do best, if that is kept in-house and the rest is outsourced, you can build your business on alliances. So, things like that are non-core to you, give to people who do it best, outsource that bit. And Get those alliances together, because your core has to remain in you and you have to build your core. So that is the time right now to innovate on your core business. And the rest, you have to build. And if you have to actually get a competitive advantage, get the right people or get the right alliances to work for you. By reducing cost, you will survive. But by innovating and investing in the right IP, you will thrive. And that's a no-brainer. Again, a lot of people come and ask me that, okay, so I think we should be reducing all our costs and I think we should be fine and we will sail away. But, the next question that I ask them back, fine, you will reduce your costs. You will survive this thing. But what about the next 6 months to 12 months? What will happen to you? Because you have not invested in any kind of innovation. You have not invested in any sort of an IP. How will you thrive? Because you will then, somebody else will. If you don't, somebody else will. Go with the flow, swim against the tide. And that's like one of my favorite fitting oxymorons that I have. Choose the right partners. Low cost does not equate to good quality. Now, there are a lot of people, there are a lot of companies right now which are giving things for free. That's like free. Don't get into that free trap. Okay. So whether it is a services company, whether it's a product company, whether it's an organization, I mean, if they're using you, if they're putting you as a freebie, then you are the guinea pig, right? Understand if it is a product or a services that's really going to help you and that has some core into it. Do not fall for these traps. It's everywhere. People will just trap you and say, okay, this is a freebie, you can take it as, but then it will actually not lead you where you want to be. So be just cautious about choosing the right partners. Low cost does not equate to good quality, or may not. I do not say, but low cost may not equate to good quality. Okay. Now, the consumer insights. Know your customer and his or her pain point very well and find solutions. So, I mean, that goes without saying. If you have to be in marketing, if you have to lead your business, then you have to get to understand your customer very well and understand the pain points pretty well and find the solutions. Consumers or the customer is in distress too. So be sensitive and be realistic. So, don't promise the moon, but true brands are those who actually are sensitive and realistic at this point in time, who understand, from an empathy perspective, that what I'm giving right now, because, I'll just give you an example for that. I mean, there is a brand, I mean, I don't want to name it, and a very well-renowned brand, but at this point in time, what they're promising is something very fake, and as a consumer, I have always believed in the value proposition of that brand. I felt cheated. So do not, I mean, from a brand perspective or from any sort of offering perspective, just be sensitive and just be realistic. I mean, no one is saying that you try and offer the moon or, try and offer a lot, but whatever you're offering, be genuine. Shift towards mindful living. And I again say that this is a consumer insight that we have got, that, consumers are shifting towards a mindful living. Everybody is looking, and, this whole scenario has actually given us the time to rethink. So each one of us in our individual capacity, maybe, and the consumer is human as well. So everyone is looking at and introspecting internally that, was I living mindfully enough? Is there something that I could have done much better to better my sense of living? The nature, have I contributed enough to the nature? So that is where a lot of future innovations will stem from. So be mindful of that. Another thing, in terms of the rural demographic, we have seen what is happening in India in order of the reverse migration that is happening. Rural will open up in India big time, and it's a big untapped market. Okay, so India does not live in tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 cities. we have to go rural, and this is the time. We have been reading about rural marketing, how organizations were actually focusing on rural India more. But right now, the true essence of expansion will definitely come. And that true essence will actually come when this rural demographic will be attended to. Gig economy will expand horizons, both demand and supply. Okay, so it's also a very interesting consumer insight, or the way I would say the consumer insight, or maybe the way things are actually working out. The gig economy, you can work from anywhere, you can supply anywhere, your demand can be generated anywhere, and you can. So with this whole remote default, you will be able to find your demand and supply anywhere. So there are people, and in this will actually blur the boundaries of physical or local. I think it will be counterintuitive, and it will be saying that, okay, we have been saying that a lot of companies, a lot of organizations, a lot of countries are becoming nationalist, but a lot of workforce is getting open from a gig economy perspective. Everyone would be looking at taking that supply from where I can get the best, and I don't need that person physically with me. So think about the horizon from both demand and supply perspective. Sensible digital transformation is the necessity. Digital transformation, yes, everybody is looking at a digital transformation, but I think it has to be very sensibly driven through your organization, looking at your consumer life cycle, looking at the way your customer is interacting with you. It is inevitable, but it needs to be sensible. Okay, and that's where I'm kind of coming on to the crux, or maybe what I've kind of most marketing at last. So very interesting insights that we have on marketing to share with all of you. And a lot of questions, a lot of queries coming my way from different perspectives. Marketing, so let me set that straight. Okay, marketing is not a cost head, it's your key compass to navigate. So if you're looking at cutting cost, and if you're looking at cutting and chopping your marketing and advertising spends, and you're chopping and looking at taking your whole marketing team out, I think that's not the right thing to do in this scenario, because this recession is definitely different from the other recessions that we have had. There are organizations, and there are sectors, and there are consumers who have been highly impacted positively as well. So marketing, you look back to what we have said in the opportunity matrix, whether your business has been a highly impacted, a mediumly impacted, or a low impacted, both negatively and positively, you need to start communicating, innovating, and generating demand. And what or which function will lead you as a compass to navigate through it will be your marketing and communications team. So be prudent when you take any decision on that. But bucket your marketing spends and align it with the goal compass. It doesn't mean that you spend, because of course we understand that everybody is in a cost crunch. So you can't be spending a lot on maybe an outdoor advertising. So you need to be very mindful of where you're putting that marketing dollars that you have. Recently, I was in a seminar, a digital seminar, a virtual seminar like this, on wherein a lot of cybersecurity professionals were there, and I was listening to a couple of them, and one of the CEO of a leading cybersecurity firm said that this time I am tripling my marketing budget, and I was like, wow, amazing, because here he said a very interesting thing, that if I won't do that right now, and here understand what he's saying, he's tripling his marketing budgets, or the marketing dollars that he or she would be spending on across geographies across India. And the question was that I mean, aren't you worried about your costs and stuff like that? And he said, no, I mean, if I don't do it right now, I will miss my bus. So again, be very clear where to bucket them and how to do that. It's not about that you need to cut costs. It's about you need to augment also. Again, communicate, communicate, and communicate. What do you need to communicate? You need to communicate what innovations, and again, go back to the previous slides in terms of what all do you need to communicate. So for need to communicate, I'm not saying marketing. So you need to communicate, you have a very good communication strategy with you. Digital is a medium to communicate, so use it wisely. We have been having a lot of people who are saying, okay, let us go on to LinkedIn, let us post content, let us do a digital campaign. Do it. It is a medium that can be utilized very beautifully, but do it with a detailed plan in your mind. Just don't go ballistic over because everybody is on LinkedIn or everybody is on Facebook or everyone is on. So you need to have a very clear thought process about a very clear plan in mind that if digital is a medium to reach out to my target audience, what should I time it? How should I time it? Where should I time it? So definitely it's a great medium, and you have a lot of people these days hooked onto digital, but use it wisely. Email marketing. Now, again, I have been a very avid follower of email marketing. Now, email marketing is a very direct tool of marketing. So email marketing, and I would say a direct marketing, use it to augment your social media reach. Okay, do not bucket it separately. That's important. Beware of the quacks. There is no shortcut to success. So if someone comes to you and tells you that, hey, I'm a digital marketing agency, I will increase your likes and I will increase your followership in the next 2 weeks or 3 weeks, just beware. Nothing like that happens. So you need to choose your partners very well. You need to understand that there are no shortcuts. You need to have a plan in place. Okay, and if somebody tells you these things, because I know a lot of people getting fooled by such claims, do not fall prey to that. Do not fall prey to that. Work with a detailed plan. Work with your marketing team, work with your marketing heads, work with the great marketing people there to plan your marketing spends, to plan your marketing campaigns and monitor them regularly. Okay, and as I said, surgical, tactical strategy. Have that plan in place. Invest in an IP that will leapfrog in future. And when I say invest in an IP that leapfrog in future, innovate your business processes. Do not shy away about experimenting. And right now, when we are all sitting back and watching the world, there's a great time of opportunity, or the date window of opportunity that has been given to us to just resurrect what we have not done so far. So just leash out and just go ahead and kind of create, because if you create this time, you will be thriving for the next 6, 7, 8, 9, 12 months. But if you do not act right now, it'll be too late. Innovate your customer contact point matrix. Now that's pretty important. Now, there has been a lot of customer touch points that we marketers or organizations use for getting in touch with our customer, whether it's through email, whether it's to a marketing, a DM that goes in, whether it's to a hi. Try and innovate those customer matrix. See where consumer is going. I mean, if you can reach out to him or her at the point, or you say a point of sale. I don't use a point of sale word, but a point of touch. Right now, as a brand or as an organization, if you can just reach there and be there and state that, hey, we are there, we're listening to you, we are with you, because look, everybody is in the same boat. That will definitely add to your brand. That definitely add to your brand affinity. So communicate. Build a reliable brand. As I initially said, do not go for quacks. I mean, as a brand, you should actually deliver what you promise. never sway away from that. There are no shortcuts. So if you, as a brand that you're promising, now this is the time everybody is going and testing you. Nobody would go and test you in a good time or something like that. But in a bad time, or in a time, or in a challenging time like these, if you do not deliver on your brand promise, you will be out of the arena very fast. So just be a reliable brand. And I think that's my last statement, and I often use it. Use common sense with creativity. That's what marketing is all about. It's about common sense, and use it creatively. And get people who actually understand the statement pretty well. Okay, that was my last slide from the presentation. And Eric?
Oh, Ruchika, thank you so much. That was fascinating to look at how people adapt and to seize the opportunity before we miss the bus, right?
Yes.
This time of opportunities, as they say, you know, one person's crisis is another opportunity. And there are definitely businesses that are out there thriving. And this is I think if we take from your presentation, this is the moment to do those things that maybe you've been putting off, but now the opportunity is greater. And I love that anecdote you said about one of the CEOs says, you know what, I'm not cutting back on marketing. To the contrary, right? This is the time for me to build that brand and to show as a leader in the industry, I'm tripling my budget, which I found was very, very interesting.
Oh yeah, it was, I just fell off my chair when
Yeah, I'm the same way. I mean, maybe I'm one more of the conservative mindset. I'm thinking, okay, maybe huddle down and try to survive this and then go forward. But you know, it's very good to be able to take a look back at your business and decide which strategy you're going to do and why, not just out of blind fear or make an actual plan and have that as a conscious decision of which way you're going to go. So I appreciate those insights. But I want to get to the questions because there are so many questions here. If you don't mind, I'd like to go ahead and start with some of these. The first one is kind of a general question, but it's how is this recession different from what mankind has experienced from a consumer behavior perspective? So if you could give your insights on that.
So, Eric, what I believe is that this is very different from what we have seen in past from a consumer insight perspective, is because there are a couple of sectors which have been impacted pretty highly, and you know so it's kind of a I mean, in the past recession, I think the economy was down and it was going down uniformly for everyone. Okay, but herein what's happening right now is, there are certain sectors that are booming, there are certain sectors that have been impacted low, and there are certain sectors that have been there, and it has been, and this kind of a crisis, it's a kind of I would say a medical crisis or a pandemic that's been there, has actually given rise to a lot of opportunity. The way we were working, the way, I mean, we say the professionals were working, or the way the corporate houses were working, it is, we were in a status quo, but now suddenly, we are ready to experiment. We're just ready to, go and innovate and stuff like that. So that's where I think the shift is, in the, from a live and a livelihood perspective, there are questions far beyond that. So I think that's the reason why it is a little different from the other recessions that I think we have had so far.
Great, thank you. A follow-up question on this is and it kind of goes directly to that story you mentioned about the CEO, is that the question is, marketing and advertising budgets are shrinking. As an entrepreneur, which method should I use to still communicate with my customers and keep my brand alive?
Okay, that's a pretty interesting one. So, well, Eric, it actually depends upon, the business that you are in. The marketing and advertising budgets are definitely shrinking. But, when I talk about the digital platforms that are available, like, we have the LinkedIn and the Facebooks of the world. So you can utilize them very nicely and aptly because a couple of these are organic. You need not pay over your content. You have to invest in your content. And as I talked about email marketing, the DMs or the direct marketing are certain things that you can actually, get together and roll out a good campaign that will actually help you. So it actually depends upon, and content, communication, you can have your own channels to do it that are not costly at all. You have your own website, you have your own LinkedIn's and also. So that's where, you can make a mix of it. You need not go full ballistic onto an outboard advertising, which will cost you millions of dollars to put a hoarding or something like that. But things are getting evolved toward a more personal touch. So that's where I would say that, the marketing mix has to be tuned that way.
No, that makes sense. I mean, I think we talk to entrepreneurs and we always say that your marketing campaigns, of course, should be tuned and targeted and focused on any day. You don't just broadcast out there for the majority of the startups. But I think in these challenging times that lesson is even more important to decide which kind of methods you're going to be using that are the most cost effective and the most targeted. So another question is, and again, this kind of goes back to that same ideas. We are witnessing huge layoffs and austerity measures, and you are advocating investments in IP creation. Isn't that counterintuitive? Could you kind of go back on that and explain a bit more about what you were saying?
Yes, it is counterintuitive, and that's a very good question. When we talk about investing in the IP, now, when we say investing in the IP, does not necessarily mean that you are doling out a lot of dollars in there. It's the investment in your IP could be an investment in the innovation process that you're coming out to be, or maybe a new product offering or new service offering, or maybe a renovation of the current product offering that you already had, or a services offering that you already had. So creating an IP right now, it is important. And because if you don't create it right now, you would not have that window of opportunity that you have right now, so that because somebody else will do, and then you will lose your competitive advantage. So a lot of sectors like maybe an ed tech, what's happening in ed tech right now. So I mean, that's a classic example of education online. So, Byju's or, Edcast or companies like that, they had already created their IP way back, and they were just looking at that transformation to happen. So look at that. So what happened when this thing came in? They were ready with their IP, and they just can roll on and make a lot of, I would say, create a lot of demand for themselves. But had they not done before, or, there are a lot of edtech players that I say, a Vedantu or newbies that are coming on to be. So they're creating their IP right now, so they can leverage their demand. So you have to be commonsensical in terms of, so the matrix that I showed you in terms of an opportunity matrix, that whether you have a very high degree of impact on your business, and high from a positive perspective and a high from a negative perspective also, there is where you have to start looking at IP creation. And even if you have to invest in the IP creation, trust me, it's gonna pay you off in times to come.
Great. Well, thank you. And as you said, I mean, these are not normal times, and these kind of questions where you think that would, at first glance, that would be the opposite. It's counterintuitive, right? Yes. But that's, I think, where the true entrepreneurs and leaders can take a look and say, look underneath that level and see what the opportunities are for your business and to promote even more, depending on, of course, the industry you're in as you.
Yes.
Let's go on to the next question. For startups and SMEs, will it be beneficial to have an in-house marketing setup or an outsourced entity? And what should be the parameters to evaluate that?
Okay, again, a very tricky question, but okay, so I would answer like that. So you need to decide what's your core is. Okay, so for example, if your core is something that's related to marketing and that's related, so basically if your core is, you're an FMCG company, say for example, marketing and sales is your core. So I mean, your business thrives on that. It makes a lot of sense to have the marketing team in-house. Okay, because that's what's driving your product innovation. That's what's driving your, processes and stuff like that. But look at the genre of maybe say B2B organizations or IT organizations, wherein the core is the product IP or the IT or the IT services that they do. They can have peripherals and they can say, okay, they have an in-house team, maybe, a sort of a think tank that's in-house, and then there are different delivery models. And people can be outside in terms of, a digital agency they can hire, an advertising agency they can hire, a PR agency. That is all in the peripheral, but the core remains inside. Okay, but nowadays with the gig economy opening up, I mean, you can have your marketing heads. I mean, we talk about virtual CMOs or virtual CFOs or virtual CEOs as well. If you want to cutting your cost and you're looking at, having that outsource model, that could work as well for you. So that's what I'm saying, that, to have for an SME or for a startup, trust me, it's very difficult to have an in-house marketing team. I've seen a lot of people struggle for that. And that's why they'll actually, try and gravitate towards more outsourced sort of, talent that they can hire, and that can help them guide as well in terms of their things. So it actually depends. But I think it depends upon what's your business model. So if your business model is very core from a marketing perspective, keep that core in-house. But if it is not, if it's non-core, it's better to outsource.
Well, that makes sense. And this is something I say so often. I joke about with our startups during the cohorts, is that my favorite answer, or the most common answer I give almost on every question, is it depends. Really,
it depends. Yeah, it depends.
Depends on your business model, depends on your industry, it depends on what you're actually looking for. In entrepreneurship or in business, maybe in life in general. I wish it were so easy to say, here's the question, here's the answer, right? It really depends on the context of what you're looking at and what kind of you're at. So thank you for your insights on this. And for those of us watching and following us here on Facebook and on the webpage for Nexus, please do go ahead and submit your questions, and our staff will bring them to us, and we can then ask Ruchika. In the meantime, I think we have a couple more questions. Let me see if I can grab this one up. Here's one. So one of the final questions we have: how can I maximize? You talked about the gig economy a lot in this presentation. How can I maximize the concept of the gig economy in hiring an efficient marketing team? Will that work, or give me your thoughts on that? So it's basically using the gig economy and maximizing that to bring somebody on board as an efficient marketing team. Will that work, having somebody coming in on a gig economy for the marketing team, or is that not a good idea?
Well, again, it can be a good idea depending on how you're choosing your marketing team. Okay. So you need to have an expert to make you realize that what kind of skill set you need. And that skill set can be available, whether, you can choose it, whether it's the person sitting in London, where a person is sitting in India, where a person is sitting in UK, because, you need to have the right skill set. So definitely it can work out, and it can work out very well, because right now I see a trend wherein a lot of organizations are also, opening up for that. I mean, initially there was a bit of hesitance in terms of, that people need to be in house and they need to be on my, sitting next to me. But now with that whole social distancing thing, people are actually looking at, okay, we do not mind if our workforce is sitting at home or they're sitting anywhere. I mean, it's working from anywhere. So it actually doesn't matter. So, but the key thing is that you need to have the right skills to evaluate who you need for that role. And if that person is fitting, then there is a great opportunity for this gig economy coming up. And it is actually happening. I mean, we are seeing it happening right now. It used to be a past. I mean, there are a couple of portals like, Flexi, there was Flexi Moms, or, it was majorly for work from home moms. But right now, there are a lot of portals that are coming up, like for me, say, TapChief, or, they're looking at a workforce that is available for you to tap into, and that can be anywhere. So, especially it goes for marketing. So in marketing, you would need content writers, you would need a digital partners, you will need somebody who can do strategy, and then you can do your creatives. So if your creatives, digital strategy, everything can be available, can be made available to you, and you have the best people on board. Why not? Because you can now work anywhere and people are open to that. So yes.
No, that's again, it's an interesting insight, because for the gig economy now, you do have experts available, like I said, all around the world. Forgetting the COVID virus, which is accelerating that trend, of the work at home and the work at office, but you do have access now to talent all around the world, all around India, that can do these kind of things.
Yes.
But on the other hand, you have to be careful, right? Because of that, now I've seen a proliferation of people says, hey, I can do this. I'm a online marketing expert. I'm an online this or that. And it's easy to be, like I think you mentioned, to watch out for not the scams, but watch out for the quacks.
Yes, watch out for the quacks.
So you need to have, ironically, to hire a good outside marketing team or operations manager, whatever it is. You do need somebody to make sure you're getting the right skill set, and then you're not just blindly saying somebody. Because now with all these people doing gig workers, it's not the same as interviewing in person, where you get a feel for that personality, that team dynamic, the real of their actually, can they do the work? It's all online, and it's a bit trickier that way. So I think the point you're saying of make sure you get those skill sets, know exactly what you're looking for, and be able to evaluate those is very important. Having said that, if you can do that, I think the opportunities, like you said, are very strong. And
Yes,
it can work out really well. Some companies have done fantastically well with outsourcing in the gig economy, all of these different aspects, and not having to have that in-house, which is a great ability if it works for your business. So I think we're pretty much finished with the question. Let me just make sure if there was one more that came in or not. Let's see. I think that's really it. Audience, again, if you have any questions, go ahead and send it in. But I'll give the last word to you, Ruchika. Is there anything you want to do to kind of summarize this, to kind of give our audience a farewell on this, on how the gig economy and these opportunities? Please, let me give you the last word.
Okay, thanks, Eric. Thanks for giving me this opportunity. And I really like interacting with the whole thing. And this is very close to my heart in terms of, because we're seeing it very closely when we're working in our consulting firm. And, we see a lot of queries coming in from various walks of life, from example, a B2B organization, or maybe emerging tech companies, that how do we streamline our businesses? There are a lot of dilemmas relating to marketing perspective, and clearing the doubts is always great. And, so I think I would just want to wrap up at that it's a great time to innovate, generate demand, and communicate. So do not be in a silo, do not have any qualms about it. I think go for it. This is the time for you to create an opportunity, and I think the rest will be history.
Great. Well, that's wonderful. Ruchika, thank you so much for taking your time. Ruchika Malhotra, everybody from repliCMO. We will give her contact information if y'all have any other questions or would like to contact repliCMO about some of their activities or have other questions. She has been generous to offer that. So we will put her contact information on the Facebook feed here for those who want it. Want to thank everyone for tuning in. This again has been one of our seminars that we do every month regarding entrepreneurship from the American Center here in New Delhi, and from Nexus, which is the startup hub and incubator. If you want to know more about what we do and how we support entrepreneurs, Indian startups, and growing and getting funding and being successful in their journey, please take a look at our website. It's www.startupnexus.in. And just to let you know, we are doing our 10th cohort. We've been doing this for a couple of years now. And when we started, we weren't really sure how long we would be here. It was a startup itself, but we've been very, very successful. We're actually launching our 10th cohort at the end of June, and applications are open now. Unfortunately, this cohort will be a virtual cohort because of the situation. But bringing in experts like Ruchika and other experts from around India and around the world to help startups understand the journey and to help them be able to commercialize is what we do. So again, if that's something that's interesting to you, please take a look at our webpage. But again, the access to experts and the expertise of people like Ruchika and people like her company, repliCMO, are really invaluable. So Ruchika, thank you again so much. We really appreciate it.
Thanks, Eric. Pleasure.
And for everyone else, thank you for tuning in. And this will be available. We have this recorded. This will be available for about another week. And you can take a look at that and refer to some of the insights that she gave you during this. But other than that, everybody, please stay safe, be successful, and we wish you luck. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.